Welcome back to Arise and Shine. Caroline Clark is an award-winning journalist and executive editor for Black Enterprise magazine, and she thought she knew everything she needed to know about her life until she went on a search for her biological mother. In her memoir detailing this experience in the book, Postcards from Cookie, oh, we have it up there. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you, Rain. Thanks so much.
So what made you start at 37 years old on this biological search?
You know, the funny thing is I really wasn't searching for my biological mother per se. What I wanted was medical information. I'd had some joint pains for years. I was just too young for it. I was never a professional athlete. No one could explain why I was having these things. I had young children. And I was worried about what I could be passing on to them. So I went searching for the only thing I knew I could get by law, which was just medical information. And I ended up getting
so
way more.
Yeah. So when you talk about this unforgettable discovery, what was it?
Well, you know, it was a really multi-layered thing. Initially, what was clear to me from a very sort of sketchy description of my biological family was that I knew them. That was A. B, I realized that my biological mother was the older sister of a very dear friend of mine that I'd been friends with since college. And the kicker is that they are daughters of Nat King Cole. So Nat King Cole was my grandfather, which never would have occurred.
So when you found this out, how was the discovery like actually made? And when did you first make contact to make them aware, because you were growing up with them, you were friends?
Right. I went back to my agency, Spence Chapin, which is here in New York, and I knew I could get medical information. So I met with a social worker, and I thought, oh, you know, at best she'll tell me 3 things. You know, she was healthy, your grandmother was healthy, good luck. You know, the fact of the matter is she could have walked out of that agency, been hit by a car. No one would have ever contacted the agency. I would never know. But she had this report. It was 7 pages. It was single-space typed. It was a whole lot of information that I could just see from across the room, and I couldn't imagine what was there. It turned out my birth mother had lived in a home for unwed mothers at that time. For several months. So they had a lot of information on her, more than typical. And they described her life at that time. They described her family at that time, siblings, sort of a sense of what her parents did. And I just recognized them. It's a unique family. There were 5 children. My birth mother was adopted in the family. She had a brother who was adopted. Even said she had a sister who was musically gifted. You know, at the time, turns out to be Natalie Cole. So I knew right away, I recognized
So
her.
how did you feel when you first met Cookie? And had that discussion, how did it feel and what came up for both of you?
Well, we did it on the phone. She lived in LA, I live in New York, so I called her. I love that picture. I always think about how it must have felt for her. For me, obviously, you know, my heart was pounding. I was worried. I was calling her at work. I thought, this poor woman, you know, out of the blue, I'm going to drop into her life. She handled it so incredibly well. You know, talking about it later, obviously, she was just thunderstruck. But she was an actress, you know, maybe that helped. And she just rose to the occasion with such grace, and she was so happy, obviously, to hear from me, and it just exceeded every hope and dream I could have had.
Do you know some of the reasons why she had to give you up for adoption at that time?
It was very typical for the time, and I think it's so easy to forget in our culture today how far we've come with unwed pregnancy and unwed mothers. You know, I'm not that old. At the time, it was just a devastatingly shameful thing for most families, and they sent girls away, and there's a whole, you know, generations of women who went away, were told to have the baby, get rid of the baby, come back, lose the weight, act like nothing ever happened. And they did. They lived in secrecy for years. It was very traumatic for them, but it was just the tenor of the times. It's what was done. Nobody questioned it. We've come so far from that. When I talk to kids now about this book, they just don't get it. They're like, but why? Why would she have to give you up? Well, she had to give me up because it was a shameful thing. She wasn't married. And then to add to that, she was a daughter of Nat King Cole. And, her
There was a social stigmatism
Absolutely,
on it.
there was a
Right.
stigma, and there was a risk perceived for her father's career.
Absolutely.
Here he was, this incredible celebrity like yours.
Right.
And she was convinced by her parents and her mother in particular that she could completely kill his career. So that was a huge burden.
And were there any pearls of wisdom in your conversations that maybe also for you that could have been healing in some aspect?
Everything about meeting Cookie was healing. She, she's this force of light, and having me changed her life. I mean, it really did. It changed her life in millions of ways that were never fully unpacked. It was really traumatic for her, and she never forgot me. She never stopped thinking about me. She never stopped praying for me. And I'm convinced that my life, which is incredibly fortunate, is partly that way, because she was always out there, sending good vibes and prayers my way. She went on and had 2 other sons who've been incredible about embracing me. The whole family has been incredible about it.
So the book is called Postcards from Cookie, right? So are these postcards and letters that you shared between us when people actually wrote to each other?
Right.
Actually.
I know, remember that, right? It's like unwed pregnancy, it's an old thing. The USPS is making a comeback. They have this new marketing campaign, and I'm thrilled because there is something that can only come from ink on paper. Now, I'm a writer, so I'm biased, but whenever I write people a card, whenever you write people, it's such a big deal now. It means something that you just can't get with an email, with a text. These things have their place. But Cookie lived 3,000 miles away from me. She does not fly. Absolutely afraid, will not ever fly. So, we had to communicate some other way. And we did do emails and other things, but she was a postcard fanatic. When her parents traveled, when her dad was on the road,
always send a postcard.
That's
that was
how
the
they
thing.
communicated. And so she loves postcards. So I have hundreds and hundreds of them. And she wasn't a writer by trade, but she was thrilled to find out I was. And she's really gifted at it. So Postcards from Cookie, that's where that comes from.
So that's where that comes from. So when did you meet the rest of the Cole family? And how was that experience?
Well, so the funny thing,
I know you were growing up with them as friends.
Right. I met Timlin Cole when I was 16 and a freshman in college, and we stayed friends. She was at my wedding. We are really friends. So I had met some of the family. I had met Tim and Cookie's mother, Maria Cole, my grandmother, when I was 16. I had met Tim. I'd met her other sisters. I didn't meet her brother, but I pretty much met the rest of the members. We ultimately reconnected with me being part of the family a few months after Cookie and I talked on the phone. And they've just been awesome. They were thrilled. It's a hard thing, it's a happy story. It is not an easy thing. Reunion is a hard thing. It's hard for the family that raised you. My parents were absolutely amazing in sort of releasing me to this process, and whatever it would be, they didn't know. And the Cole family has been unbelievable in just, embracing me and this whole thing. Because it was hard for the family, and they did know. Timlin knew. Or suspected. And that's a hard spot to be in, especially when you're 18, not knowing how to deal with it.
So when people read the book, what do you want them to take away
I
from
think
Postcards from Cookie?
I wrote the book because it's ironic. I never thought I'd write a memoir. I'm a journalist. I tell other people's stories, not my own. But I didn't realize that I needed to know. I didn't realize what knowing would do for me. And I think we all, you don't have to be adopted. Families about secrets and lies. We all have stuff in our families. We all have stuff we wonder about ourselves. Just go for it. Find out. Know who you are.
Thank you so much. So Postcards from Cookie, you can get today. Caroline, thank you so much. Her story is amazing. Her book is called Postcards from Cookie. Again, you can buy it at Barnes & Nobles and on Amazon. To find out more about Caroline, you can find her on Twitter. I tweet with her, Caroline Clark, and on her website, carolinevclark.com. And we'll be right back with a model and humanitarian, Magdala Cooper. More on Arise and Shine when we return.